Hey everyone, hello, and welcome back to the show that asks you to pull out your chairs, get out your TTRPG books, and join us at the table. Today we are going back to this beautifully, wonderfully, and powerfully made book, Secrets of Magic. We covered a little bit last week. There's so much more, we've barely touched the surface, and this is seriously one of the best TTRPG supplements I've ever seen. We're going to cover that more in a bit, but first, let's say hello to the two faces you see before you. Starting, of course, with Mr. Michael Powell. Please tell them who you are and where they can find you on that sweet, sweet internet.
Hello, everybody. As always, I am the dastardly, dashing Michael Powell. And you can find me all over the internet on my social medias, which is at Mr. Kapow. That's MRKAPAO. And how about you?
My name is PJ McGaw. You can find me all over the internet at pj.mcgaw, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Come find me, come friend me, and let's have fun. Now that you know who we are, if you haven't already, let's get into this really cool, gorgeous book. We're going to be covering 3 archetypes today, not only showing you stuff from the book itself, but going, of course, to our great online resource, the Archives of Nethys, which I believe are supported by Paizo, so go check that out as well. Now, we're going to be covering 3 archetypes, if time allows. We're going to be starting off first with the Cathartic Mage archetype. The kind of general idea to this is emotional focused for magic casters. Now, specifically, the prereq says Charisma 14 or the ability to cast spells. So there may be some benefits for those characters that are not magic casters.
Yeah.
And one more thing, this is a focus in the thing, and this I think really does need to be said. This is going to have an emotional focus for the character, meaning role play and making emotional choices. And it's important to say that some emotional states, such as love, hatred, etc., require the caster to focus on specific individual calls to their emotional focus. Your emotional focus can change over time when you're choosing a new focus after an important part of your story is resolved. So this will be narratively driven as well. You should also reach out to your GM when these changes happen to figure out the next one, but also talk to your group of people because you're going to have to role play some very strong emotions. Now, some tables probably won't care. It's like, yeah, be horny, be angry, whatever, who cares? But some people may be sensitive to the emotions that you are going to have to wrestle and play with. So just remember that. Not a big deal beyond just checking in on people.
Hey, PJ, do you want to know my nickname for these mages?
What was that?
The Vibe Mage.
The Vibe. I love that, though.
Vibe check.
What's the vibe? Do you want to read the kind of Cathartic Mage fluff paragraph at the top of the page?
Sure. Cathartic Mage. Secrets of Magic, page 194. Emotions are powerful, and you can tap into that power to enhance your magic for a time. You learn to harness a particular emotional state under the right conditions, but be warned, emotions are volatile and destructive if left unchecked. The experience often leaves you reeling from the unhindered emotion, requiring a rest or distraction before tapping into it again.
Yeah. Now, before we go to, I just love this little bit of artwork because in the example of the Cathartic Mage, we have this Rune Lord right here. And what I love about it is, if I get a little closer, he kind of looks like Joe Manganiello a little bit back when he had longer hair.
Yeah. I gotta say, I vibe with that image. Hey!
It's like, what's up? We're just going to roll some dice. Now, let's talk about the Cathartic Mage itself. This is you get the dedication feat at level 2. Some of the classes or the archetypes we dealt with last week required a first level change, which is exciting. This is, I think, a more traditional buy-in. So second level dedication feat, a prereq again, charisma of 14 or the ability to cast spells from spell slots. So potentially non-spell casters maybe can do this?
Maybe.
You've learned to harness a particular emotion and mix it into your magic. Choose an emotion from the emotional states section below to be your catharsis emotion. We'll get to that later, obviously. If you don't already cast spells from spell slots, you learn to cast spontaneous spells and gain the cast a spell activity. You gain a spell repertoire with one cantrip of your choice from a spell list of your choice. You choose this cantrip from the common spells on your chosen spell list or from your spells to which you have access on that list. DCs are that tradition. Your key spellcasting ability is always Charisma. So this is dope. If you are a fighter, barbarian, champion, rogue, who didn't take Arcane Rogue, ranger, if you are any of the traditionally martial classes, you now get access to magic without having to fluff around with wizards.
Yeah.
You get it based off charisma, which honestly for some classes is probably a better choice for them, like your champions. And you still get to have this awesome side benefit. If you already do cast spells from spell slots, you learn one additional cantrip of your spell casting tradition. If you are a prepared caster, you can prepare this spell in addition to your usual cantrips per day. If you're a spontaneous caster, add the cantrip to your repertoire. So this also provides about two abilities. The first one is called Catharsis. This is a reaction trigger determined by your Catharsis emotion. You gain the Catharsis Activation effect listed for your Catharsis emotion. This is pretty basic ground building stuff. You gain that emotional fervor benefit for 3 rounds. When your emotional fervor ends, you suffer the fallout. After using Catharsis, you can't use it again until you use the Settle Emotions activity. I love that there's an activity to settle your emotions. That's an interesting choice. What is Settle Emotions, you may ask? I'm so glad you did. You have to spend 10 minutes using techniques you developed to calm your emotions and bring them back under control. This allows you to access your Catharsis once more. It kind of feels like a focus power system. You know, like you use the focus power, you spend 10 minutes, you get it back, rinse, wash, repeat.
Do you know what it really kind of sounds like to me? Because PJ, we've had conversations about LARP before, and you spoke about stuff like bleed. This kind of feels like it.
Yeah, it feels like they're creating in-game mechanics to prevent a character from bleeding, even roleplay bleed, not even bleeding in and bleeding out, but just, you know, like it really cuts that down.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say Lost Thought in the chat says, snuggle my teddy bear to calm my emotions.
Pretty much. Could be. It could work. It could work. Or pulling the, what is it? Serenity now. Serenity now.
What was maybe it was Serenity Now, but there's another one from that show where they just shout some weird word, and it's supposed to make them feel better, and it never works.
I think that was Serenity Now.
I think that was it. Anyway, why don't you take the next archetype feat?
All right, it's the level 4. It's called Basic Carthartic Spellcasting. Prereq is Cathartic Mage Dedication. You gain the basic spellcasting benefits. Each time you gain a spell slot of a new level from this archetype, add a spell of that level from your chosen tradition to your repertoire, either a common spell or another spell you've learned or discovered. Cool. So pretty basic.
Yeah, it's giving you that slow step into magic. There is another level 4 feat. This is called the Cathartic Focus Spell. I think this is so that non-casters can still benefit. You've learned the Focus Spell listed under your emotions entry. You can cast it only while in an emotional fervor. If you don't already have one, you gain a focus pool of 1 focus point, which you can then refocus while you are settling your emotions. So I like this. What I love about this is that this works to bridge the gap between martial characters and casters. You're not going to become like a magus. You're not going to become like a gish. You're basically finding that common ground between all types of casters and all types of martial characters.
Hey, PJ, I do have a question about basic Cathartic spellcasting. If you take it on at a later level, does it retroactively activate for all the levels you haven't taken it in?
So I know with the basic spellcasting stuff, right? It still functions relative to the feat. So if you get the basic spellcasting feat, then it goes back and adds more first level slots.
Okay.
So if you take it much later, you're still going to benefit. It's just, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, if you take it at level 10, everything from before level 10, you get all that bonuses as well, right?
To a degree, yeah. You're still limited to how the feat
Yeah.
functions. But yeah, it's free magic no matter what.
Cool. All right. Next up is a level 8 feat called Work Yourself Up. It's a 2-action. Let's see. Prereq is Cathartic Mage Dedication. Requirements are you have a reaction available and haven't prevented from using car, car, I don't know why I'm not able to say it right now. I just said it. Yeah,
Catharsis?
Catharsis.
Mm-hmm.
It happens sometimes. It happens.
It
This is why we
happens.
do it live.
Let's do it live.
Anyway, you concentrate on your mental state, tapping into that raw emotional energy. Take your cathartic reaction, causing the cathartic, you know what I'm saying, activation, and entering your emotional fever as normal. The fever acts only until the end of your turn. At the end of your emotional fever, you experience the effects of your emotional fallout as normal.
Right.
So,
So,
oops, sorry.
no, please continue. I stepped on your toes.
So basically, I want to say this allows you to kind of use the whole reaction, and all that stuff, and just take that emotional fallout much later on.
Yeah, with the emotional fervor that system they're trying to put into play here, I think the big difference is you're using 2 actions to activate it, as opposed to a reaction. Determined by your catharsis emotion. So I think this is going to be more important to understand when we learn what the cathartic emotions are and how they function, because the base education feat says the catharsis is a reaction that's based upon how your emotional reaction is. So instead of waiting for that reaction, you get to just activate it at your will.
Yeah.
The next one's level 12 feat. Now, this one is pretty straightforward. It is the expert spellcasting benefit, or the expert cathartic spellcasting. You get the expert DC for your spell DC, and you get, I want to say, those who know the basic spellcasting benefits, it goes like basic, expert, and master. You get more spells at different levels. That's what this is. You get more spells related to this. Why don't you get the next one?
All right, it's called Infectious Emotions. It's a feat you can get at level 12. Prereq is Cathartic Mage Dedication. When you use I don't know why. I was able to say it correctly in the beginning of the show, and now we're just standing like kind of, yeah. But anyway, when you use that ability, one ally within 30 feet gains that ability activation benefits in addition to you. If these benefits require an emotional focus, they use your emotional focus as they're experiencing a empathic imprint of your emotions. Depending on the activation benefit, it might be impossible to grant an ally. For instance, Pride would only have an effect for an ally if both you and the ally critically failed at the same saving throw against the same effect.
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of dig this because this class is now building into it a buff mechanic. I mean, how good this buff is will determine how great the cathartic fervor and emotions are down the way. But I like that it's like, oh, hey, no matter what class you are, you want to give bonuses to people in the party? Here you go. Have fun.
Yeah.
And last but not least, level 18, you get the feat Master Cathartic Spellcasting. It functions exactly as the Master Spellcasting benefit that archetypes give. Master proficiency DCs, as well as, I think, more later level spells. Yeah. You're not going to get like a level 9 spell out of this, by the way. Don't look into that. So let's go to the emotional states, because that's kind of the crux. If you couldn't already tell, the entire thing about this is giving wizards and non-wizards or sorcerers access to this cool mechanic. So every emotional state that we're about to go into has the basic breakdown of the trigger for the catharsis, the activation for the catharsis, the benefit when you use it, the emotional fervor, which lasts for 3 rounds. After you use the catharsis, this entry also lists a spell that you're able to cast while in your emotional fervor. You must expend a spell slot to cast it, however, it's not entirely free. The slot must be at least the spell's level, and the spell is automatically heightened to the level of a slot you expended. The emotional fallout, which of course what happens when you leave the fervor, and a focus spell that you could get as well. This is probably mostly going to be used by you martial classes out there.
Yeah.
Do you want to start with anger?
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Your destructive wrath allows you to harm your foes, but causes you pain in the process. The trigger for this is an enemy deals damage to you. Makes sense. You can't use this reaction if you're fatigued. So, and this kind of makes sense that earlier feat that says just two actions you can activate this. So if you don't want to have to get hurt in order to activate anger, there you go. The activation is if you are grabbed, immobilized, or restrained, you can attempt to escape. If you succeed, the creature or hazard imposing the condition on you, if applicable, takes force damage equal to your level. That's pretty cool. If someone grapples you and you've already had damage dealt to you, you can just activate it and shove them away with force damage. Emotional fervor. When you cast a spell from your spell slots, if the spells deal damage and doesn't have a duration, you gain a status bonus to the spell's damage equal to the spell's level. I want to say Wrath, the Rune Lords of Wrath had something like this. Spell, you learn the spell Draw Ire for the anger. Draw Ire specifically. They have to make a will save. Holy moly. Oh, it's 1d10. Or I read it's something else. They take 1d10 mental damage, the creature in question on the will save. It takes a -1 penalty to attack rolls against creatures other than you. And since it's got a save feature on it, success, they still take half the damage and the penalty. If a fail, full damage, full penalty. Critical fail, they take double the damage, and they take a -2 to hit anything that isn't you. This is actually kind of a badass level 1 spell. Level 1 spell. The emotional fallout of anger. You become fatigued until you settle your emotions. So this is the sort of system put into place to make sure that you're getting angry, taking 10, getting angry, taking 10.
What does that mean, like mechanics-wise, fatigue? Just really quick.
Oh, sure. So fatigued, as a condition for those who don't know, you take a -1 status penalty to your AC. You're easier to hit, and your saving throws. It's harder for you to succeed. You cannot use any exploration activities while traveling because the idea is you're too tired. It's like, hey, can you go hunting for food? I literally can't. I'm fatigued. I'm exhausted. Which is interesting because, like, in other past editions, fatigue was a character killer. In the other game, fatigue gives you massive penalties, and there's like 10 levels of fatigue that you can accumulate and suffer from. Now, this fatigue is still numerically conditioned. You can be like fatigue 1, fatigue 5, but it mostly just takes away from your AC and saving throws. You can still fight. You can still do skill checks in combat. You just can't explore for food, and you need a full night's rest to get rid of it.
Or until you settle your emotions.
In this case, with anger, if you settle your emotions, fatigue goes away.
Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. I was just checking in the chat and seeing Reach Psyche and Pengu-chan. Great to see you, Pengu-chan.
Hey, Pengu. I was just gonna say, and there's one more thing there too.
That's right. The focus spell, Athletic Rush. It is a 1-action, 1-round focus spell. Your body fills with physical power and skill. You get a +2 status bonus to speed, +2 status bonus to athletics checks. This is really good if you're playing a grappling character, especially at level 1. This is really good if you need to climb something and your skills are just killing you. Especially climbing, because that bonus to speed, I believe, continues. So it's really good. You're not going to be like wrecking face with it, but it is helpful.
Do you know what it kind of sounds like to me, this whole the anger emotional state? It sounds like rage to me, like a barbarian's rage.
You know, I can kind of see that. And you make a good point, because it's interesting. It's different enough that a barbarian who takes cathartic casting will still get benefits that don't, like, clash. They work together.
PJ, we've talked about this before. You told me about that, I think it's a prestige class or a class from the other edition called Blood Rager? Does this sound kind of similar?
So Blood Rager is in Pathfinder 1E was a sorcerer barbarian hybrid,
Yeah.
and it was busted. It was so busted, y'all, so overpowered. This is not quite the same. This is more like a frenzy barbarian going an extra frenzy.
Okay. Actually, now I'm wondering, can a barbarian rage and also go into this emotional state?
Oh, you know what? I think so because it would only the only way it couldn't is if it was a concentration effect. It is a concentration effect.
Ah,
Okay, so that means I can't,
okay.
unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Next one is called All. Your powerful sense of wonderment can be infectious and distracting. Oh my god! It gives everybody wow, was it not OCD oh god, I'm blanking on it.
ADHD?
ADHD, exactly. It gives everybody ADHD.
I think it's more just like, wow, this is so pretty.
Anyway, the trigger for this is you or an ally within 30 feet critically succeeds on an attack roll against the enemy's AC or a skill check against one of the enemy's DCs. The activation is if you're fascinated or stupefied, you can attempt an additional save to end the effect if allowed to save. And the fever is when you cast a spell, choose one creature that was hit by your spell attack or that failed its saving throw, if any. The creature becomes fascinated with you until the end of its turn. It's then temporarily immune to this fever effect for 1 hour. And the spell for this is called Glitter Dust. Yeah, ADHD.
I love that. It's just like glitter, and I was like,
Yeah.
ooh, it's so shiny.
Oh god. Oh, I'm thinking of those. You know how people have been protecting themselves from porch pirates, getting those glitter bombs packages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But anyway, creatures in this area are outlined by glittering dust. Each creature must attempt a reflex save. If a creature has its invisibility negated by the spell, it is concealed instead of invisible. This applies both if the creature is already invisible and if it benefits from new invisibility effects before the end of the invisibility negation effect from the spell. The critical success for this is the target is unaffected. Success is the target's invisibility is negated for 2 rounds. Failure, the target is dazzled for 1 minute and its visibility is negated for 1 minute. And then critical failure is the target is blinded for 1 round and is dazzled for 10 minutes and its invisibility is negated for 10 minutes. So, yeah, the crit fail here, yeah, it's a pretty hefty price. It's a pretty
I have for
hefty
around
hit. Yeah.
dazzled for 10 minutes. Yeah, that 10-minute timer is really rough.
Yeah. The fallout for all is you become flat-footed until you settle your emotions, and the focus spell is called Dazzling Flash, and it doesn't require a religious symbol. So let's see what that does. 1 focus, 2 actions to cast material and verbal, area of a 15-foot cone, and a saving throw of fortitude. You raise your religious symbol, which you don't have to if you're this kind of mage, and create a blinding flash of light. Each creature in the area must attempt a fortitude save. Critical success, the target is unaffected. Success, the target is dazzled for 1 round. Failure, the target is blinded for 1 round and dazzled for 1 minute. The creature can spend a interact action rubbing its eyes to end the blinded condition, and critical failure, the creature is blinded for 1 round and dazzled for 1 hour. And if you heighten it to 3rd, the area increases to a 30-foot cone. So this is essentially TN's Solar Flare.
Absolutely. This is a flashbang if I ever saw one.
Yeah.
And what's really exciting about it is that because it's a focus spell, it automatically heightens, so you're having a massive cone, and it's the benefit is that this is a largely crowd control style of mage. Because being flat-footed sucks. It's worse when you're fighting rogues, but it's not like the end all be all.
Yeah.
But having Dazzling Flash basically gives everyone cover. I believe it's cover. Let me confirm this. Gives everyone I get the exact wording right because those matter. Concealment.
Yeah.
It gives everyone concealment against the target. If you put this up against the boss, they critically fail it. Now you basically just buff the entire party,
Yeah.
effectively speaking,
PJ,
for 1 hour.
Do you know what I'm thinking of when as you're describing that? Have you ever seen it's kind of a recent movie called Don't Breathe?
Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
movie, that series is so good.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of that because the protagonist, I don't think I'm spoiling it because you find out within the first minute of the movie, it's blind and has to go up against people who can see. So basically,
But
you are what is it? Leveling the playing field.
the dude is like that level of movie logic where it's like, oh, you have this issue, but don't worry, you're basically a superhero. Like, oh, are you dead? You're basically a
Yeah,
mutant.
because he's. Oh, that's a spoiler. That will be a spoiler, so I'm not going to say it, but yeah.
I don't know about that, but I do know that he's blind, and it's so interesting because, like, you know what? We are getting way off topic.
Exactly.
So the
But you know what I'm saying, though, right?
100%, yeah. Some Matt Murdock BS right there.
Mm-hmm.
So the next emotion is dedication, which is an interesting emotion. But the thing is, the description says your commitment protects those you are dedicated to. Oh, that's interesting, but can lead to dependency. Your emotional focus is an individual creature you're bound to. The Catharsis Trigger is your emotional focus takes damage from an enemy while within 30 feet of you. The Activation, your emotional focus gains a number of temporary hit points equal to half your level rounded up. This temp HP lasts for a minute. So that's cool. So basically, like, you can automatically give the person you're connected to temp HP when they're hit.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. Emotional fervor. Your spells that target your emotional focus gain the benefits of a reach spell. When you cast a healing spell that affects your emotional focus also gains the temp HP equal to the spell's level in addition to the spell's effect. That temp HP also lasts for 1 minute, and you get the spell Spirit Link. Spirit Link is a first level spell. Duration 10 minutes. One willing creature within 30 feet. You form a spiritual link with another creature, allowing you to take its pain. You cast the spell at the start of each of your turns. If the target is below maximum hit points, it regains 2 HP, or the difference between its current and maximum hit points if that's lower. You may lose as many hit points as the target's regained. This is a spiritual transfer, so no effects apply that would increase the hit points the target regains or decreases the hit points you lose. This transfer also ignores temporary HP points you or the target have. Since this effect doesn't involve positive or negative energy, Spirit Link works even if the target's undead. While the duration persists, you gain no benefit from regen or fast healing. You can dismiss the spell, and if you're ever at 0 hit points, spell ends automatically, and it heightens at one level. Each one level, the hit points increases by 2. So basically what's going down is you're transferring your HP to someone else, but no more than 2 HP per round. It is an interesting spell, the fact that they do not benefit from fast healing or regeneration because of the spell. And this spell will never heal more than 20 HP at level 20. I don't know how I feel about it.
I like the spell essentially for if you're playing a non-divine caster because it's also part of the occult spell list and it gives occult spellcasters a way to help heal their party.
Yeah, that is, that's interesting. I want to say, and I could be wrong here, but I want to also say occult casters still get access to heal. I might be wrong. I might be thinking of the other game where they still get heal spells anyway. But let's go back to dedication. Until you settle your emotions after you've activated them, you can't cast spells unless you're adjacent to your emotional focus. This is interesting. This sounds like the one emotional effect that is potentially the most bleeding and the most problematic, but also the one with the least terrible um, effects.
Yeah.
And the last one, the focus spell, is Protector's Sacrifice. It is a reaction cast. Ally within 30 feet takes damage. You protect your ally by suffering in their stead. Reduce the damage of the triggering ally by 3. You redirect this damage to you yourself, but your immunities, weaknesses, resistances, and so on do not apply. You aren't subject to any conditions other than the damage that your ally would have taken, such as poison from a venomous bite.
Mm-hmm.
Your ally is still subject to those effects, even if you redirect all the triggering damage to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The damage you direct is increased by 3 every 1 level heightened. So it's like a good tanky spell if you believe, because here's the thing, I always believe that tanks are the people that try to mitigate the damage for the party. A lot of other people in the TTRPG community feel like a tank is just a heavy-hitting melee character.
Mm.
And to that I say, that is literally DPS.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. A tank is, like you said, you take the hits, so your party doesn't have to.
Exactly. And this is kind of a good spell to do that. Like, oh, hey, I'm protecting my party members. It is kind of weird, though, because like they could still be poisoned, but if there's anyone that actually takes damage and not just the debuff from the poison, then I guess you'd take the damage.
I would say, actually, this dedication, what is it called, emotional state, is actually great if you're playing a champion. This is a great emotional state type of cathartic mage for a champion class, especially if you want that champion class to be more of a spell caster for some reason.
100%. I can definitely see this working. Like if you want to play the hyper bodyguard, you get a neutral good champion, so you get that really awesome reaction that just basically makes players take less damage. You get the dedication thing, and then you have to pick someone in your party that gets hurt a lot that you both can trust with this weird emotional role play of like, I'm dedicated to you, a lot. Because I can definitely see that being a problem where someone's like really getting into the idea of like, I must protect you at all costs, and the player's like, could you not? Like, I still have agency.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would work very, very well.
All right, we are jumping over to the next one, which is we're going to be talking about the Mind Killer. That's right, fear. You let your fear fuel you rather than consume you, but it burns your endurance. The trigger is an enemy makes you frightened. Activation, increase your frightened value by 1 to a maximum of frightened 4. The emotional fever is you don't take the status penalty from the frightened condition to your spell DCs or spell attack bonus. Instead, you gain a status bonus to spell attack rolls equal to the penalty you would have taken, and your foes take the same status penalty to their saving throws against your spells. Any other statistic takes the status penalty as normal, and the spell is fear. And that's pretty simple. It's a level 1 spell. 2 actions to cast, somatic and verbal, 30 feet, 1 target. Saving throw of will, and the duration varies. And pretty much what it does is you plant fear in the target, and it must attempt a will save. And critical success is the target is unaffected. Success is the target is frightened 1. Failure, the target is frightened 2, and critical failure, the target is frightened 3, and fleeing for 1 round. And 3rd level heightened is you can target up to 5 creatures. All right, and let's see what's else here. The emotional fallout is you are fleeing for 2 rounds, running from the source of the frightened condition that trigger your catharsis. If that source is no longer present, you instead flee from the position where you were at the start of your emotional fallout. And the focus spell here is called Waking Nightmare. Focus 1, 2 actions to cast, somatic and verbal, range of 30 feet, targets 1 creature, saving throw is will, and the duration varies. You fill the you fill the creature's mind with a terrifying vision out of its nightmares. The target must attempt a will save. If the target is unconscious, then when you cast a spell on it, it immediately wakes up before attempting its save, and if it fails to save, it gains the fleeing condition for 1 round in addition to the effects noted below. Critical success, the target is unaffected. Success, the target is frightened 1. Failure, the target is frightened 2. And crit failure, the target is frightened 3. So it's basically another fear spell.
Yep, it's basically fear. What's good about this, though, is that this still allows martial characters to benefit from the fear spell. Obviously, though, it's only one creature, and it doesn't even increase the higher level you get. But the fact that at level 1, you have a potential to, and pretty easily, well, I'd say the critical failure gets easier and easier the higher the DCs are, because that 10 under will really bite your ass the higher level you get. But what's cool about this is that a frightened 3 means that that target is now taking a -3 against all DCs and checks and things. So the debuff that this has provided, especially against bosses, is that now it's like almost a +3 easier to save against their effects. So it's really useful. I'd say it definitely ages better the higher you get, and those critical fails
I
are more
kind of
likely.
want to say the cost, though, of this emotional state, the con outweighs the pros, in my opinion. Main for the fact that your fallout is you're going to be fleeing yourself for like 2 rounds, and even if the target that of your fear is no longer there, and also you're increasing your fear value too.
Well, I'll say this. The fleeing for 2 rounds is kind of interesting because it could be a problem or it really may not be a problem. This all depends, of course, upon circumstances. For example, if after 3 rounds the fight that you're going into is still happening, yeah, that sucks. It means you're basically not fighting for 2 whole rounds.
Yeah.
However, if the fight is over, then it's kind of comical. You're literally fleeing from your position, and the thing is, you're not mindlessly running into death traps. You're just running far away. So it's one of those things where it's like, nope, give him like 12 seconds, he'll be back. And there he is. Okay, there we go.
I kind of also want to say the trigger for it is extremely niche because the enemy has to make you frightened, and that doesn't always happen regularly.
I will agree with you on that. The Catharsis Trigger being frightened is very rare in the fact that the Catharsis Activation, so like, for example, if you get that level 6 feat that just gives you 2 actions to activate your Catharsis anyway, it increases your frightened value by 1. It literally makes you more frightened, which makes sense because it's fear, but that means now you're suffering a massive penalty to your checks, your DCs, your everything. So like, if you're not frightened, and you use that those 2 action economy to activate your fear, now you're frightened 1, which is good because that means for 2 of your 3 rounds, that penalty is not going to be there anymore. But if you literally have to take this at face value, you have to take it at the mechanical base value. I mean, someone puts frightened 1 on you, and then you activate it because you want your awesome frightened powers. You're now at frightened 3, and it's going to be easier to save against every spell that you have to make this potable. It's a weird gamble, and I think at the end the math isn't as strong as it could be.
Yeah. Like I said, the scales, pros and cons, I just feel for this one, the cons just outweighs the pros just a bit. At least in my opinion.
If you really want to play Pathfinder hard mode, like if you really want to give yourself a challenge of a lifetime, pick a cleric. I'm sorry, not a cleric, an oracle. I forgot the exact. I forgot the exact mystery, but like only 2 of them are like really sustainable. So if you pick, and most of the oracle mysteries, pick the fear dedication, and then just go ham and oof.
I kind of want to say just go or play a character kind of like Dark Sidious and go, have you heard the story of Dark Plagueis the Wise?
Yeah, let me tell you the tragedy of Dark Plagueis the Wise. Speaking of the dark side, next one is hatred. Your unabashed hatred consumes your soul and causes your foe to falter. I don't know how that works. Your emotional focus is an individual enemy that you detest. That makes more sense. And then see the emotional sidebar that we talked about earlier about playing with your GM and talking to people. The Catharsis Trigger. You start your first turn in an encounter against your emotional focus or one of their followers. If the encounter includes multiple eligible followers and doesn't include your actual emotional focus, choose one of the followers to act as your emotional focus for this encounter. So you're not screwed if it's like, oh, I really hate
Jeremy.
Demigorgon the Demilich. And Demigorgon the Demilich, which is a stupid name, is not here today, but all of his little minions are. So it's like, today you're Demigorgon the Demilich. I'm going to turn your face into powder.
Or Edge of Legend, I hate that Jeremy. Everybody knows at least one Jeremy. Everybody's connected to one Jeremy.
Jeremy's everywhere. Exactly. So it says here, your Catharsis Activation. When you enter the Catharsis, you can step or stride. You must end this movement closer to your emotional focus. You are rocking up to that sucker. It is definitely Dio and JoJo having a face off. The emotional fervor. Your emotional focus is flat-footed to you and takes a -2 penalty to saves against your spells. That's really good. You're flat-footed to you, but you are also flat-footed to your emotional focus, and you take a -2 penalties to saves against it. You get the spell Blood Vendetta. If I remember what this is a reaction spell. It is. This is a nasty one. I love this. Basically, someone hurts you, right? As a reaction, you get to turn the blood that spills out of you into an attack on your enemy that does persistent bleed damage. And they must attempt a will save. If it's a critical success, the reaction misses, basically. If it's a success, the target takes half the persistent bleed damage. Failure, full persistent bleed damage, and until the bleeding stops, they have weakness 1 to piercing and slashing. Critical failure, as a failure, but the target takes double the persistent bleed damage. I cannot tell you how many times I tried to hit my players in EOL with this spell, and it never works.
I think it worked on me once.
Like, a little bit. Like, you definitely were taking half of the persistent bleed damage, but I really wanted to just get someone to critically fail and be like, yes, take 4d6 bleed damage. So Blood Vendetta, dope spell. The emotional fallout is you become stunned too. Oof.
Yeah.
High risk, high reward. So when your 3 rounds are up, you ain't doing nothing. And for those, because I know there's always some confusion about how stun and slow work and how they work together. The basic thing about stunned is you cannot act while stunned. Stunned usually includes a value which indicates how many total actions you lose, possibly over multiple turns from being stunned. Each time you gain actions, you then reduce the stun value by the number of actions you have lost. For example, if you're at stun 4, you would lose all 3 of your actions on your first turn, and then you lose only 1 the next turn. So in theory, you get 1 action after this is done.
Yeah, you're essentially taking a knee.
Yeah, you're rethinking your life choices. And the focus spell for Hatred is called Cry of Destruction. Sounds metal, and I love it. It is a 2-action cast 15-foot cone. There's a basic fortitude saving throw, which means potential for double the damage. Your voice booms, smashing what's in front of you. Each creature and unattended object in the area takes 1d8 sonic damage. If you already dealt damage to an enemy this turn with a strike or spell, increase the dice from this spell to d12s instead of d8. And to make matters even juicier, this is a 1-for-1 level. So that means every 1 level, it gets another d8 or a d12. So if you take 1 strike, bam, to hit the target, and then Cry of Destruction at level 20, whatever that strike's worth, crit or not, and then 10d12 damage. And if they critically fail that basic fortitude save, 20d12 damage.
Basically, this is your Canary's Cry.
Oh, this is definitely Black Canary territory.
Yeah.
This is Cry of Destruction, and that's a 15-foot cone.
Yeah.
So that means 1 person will be getting d12s, but there's still an area of effect of d8s happening behind that sucker. I think this is probably one of the best damage-dealing focus spells. Like pure damage, not without any of the fun gimmicks, just pure destroy face.
Yeah, like I said, this Hatred much like I want to say, what is it? Anger just feels like a spellcaster's version of rage, of barbarian's rage.
I can kind of see that. Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, it's hatred. It
Mm,
kind of reminds me a little bit of the Rangers' hated
mm,
enemy or favorite enemy
yeah.
ability. But A, it's actually better. And two, because it is a specific individual, it kind of bypasses the really awkward territory that most favorite enemies had where it became a little problematic.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of want to say, yeah, hatred is, I don't know, just that stun too, right? That just, ooh, that's one of those pro and cons. But honestly, then getting access to the focus spell of Cryo Destruction kind of evens out the playing field for me, at least.
Yeah, and especially Blood Vendetta. So as
Yeah.
you're fighting, you're still just you're always on the offensive, which I love.
Mhm.
And here's the reality: Stun 2 sucks, no way around it. But it means you're only losing 2 of your 3 actions on your turn,
Mhm.
compared to fleeing 2,
Yeah.
where you're losing 2 whole rounds. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, fleeing for 2 rounds. You're losing 2 whole rounds no matter what.
Yeah.
This is only 2 actions for 1 round.
I I want to say this actually pairs pretty well with Champion's anti-paladin thing.
Oh, yeah. I forgot what the chaotic evil champion
Yeah.
does. But yeah, no, it really does pair well with that. I'd
Mm-hmm.
even say it pairs well with the rogue,
Mm.
because of the flat-footed bonuses and the
Mm.
penalties to saves.
Yeah.
Not to
Sad.
mention,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and also the Cry of Destruction
Yeah.
as rogue. You get 1 action to sneak attack
Yeah.
on somebody and then you scream in their face
Yeah.
and oof.
Sadly, you can't have can't do the emotional state with rage because if you
Mm-mm.
can, this would just be busted.
Oh, be absolutely busted because that concentration thing. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of why they do that because they're like,
Yeah.
the barbarian in this game, especially if you go giant
Mm.
instinct barbarian,
Yeah.
has a potential to just get another 12 to 18 raw damage to every strike they throw. So let's make it so that it's almost damn near impossible to multi-class the
Yeah.
barbarian so that it's not getting too crazy.
Mhm. All right. Next up is joy. Because I got a joy, 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 joy deep in my heart. Where
Where?
deep in my heart
Where?
today.
I don't know the
Yeah,
classic.
me neither. Anyway, your unbridled enthusiasm and positive attitude can lead you to success, but you might expend more energy than you plan. Oof, this just hits home. Oh, personally, oh, oof. Anyway, the trigger is you critically succeed on an attack roll or save, or an enemy critically fails on a save against you. Activation, reduce the value of any frightened or stupefied condition you have by 1, and end any persistent mental damage you have. Emotional Fever is you gain a +1 status bonus to performance checks and to spell attack rolls of emotion spells. And enemies take a -1 status penalty to saves against your emotion spells. The spell here is, ooh, I like this one. Hideous Laughter.
Oh,
Let's
this is a
see.
classic.
Spell level 2. It's, let's see. Two actions to cast, somatic and verbal, range of 30 feet, targets 1 living creature, saving throw of will, duration is sustained. The target is overtaken with uncontrollable laughter. It must attempt a will save. Critical success, the target is unaffected. Success, the target is plagued with uncontrollable laughter. It can't use reactions. Failure, the target is slowed 1 and can't use reactions. Critical failure, the target falls prone and can't use actions or reactions for 1 round. It then suffers the failure effects. Ooh,
Oh, it's
ooh,
so gnarly. I love it. So
yeah.
if they critically fail on the Hades laughter spell, uh, that is the worst thing I've ever seen. You fall prone, you lose 1 full round. Then the
Hmm.
next round, you lose 1 action, and you can't use reactions. That's
Hmm.
that's 2 rounds where you are being seriously hindered in your economy.
Yeah. The emotional fallout for this is you become fatigued until you settle your emotions. That kind of does make sense. especially with the flavor it has. And the focus spell is called Unimpeded Stride. Let's see, it's focus 1. It's 1 action to cast, somatic. Nothing can hold you in place. You immediately escape from every magical effect that has you immobilized or grabbed unless the effect is of a higher level than your impeded stride spell. You then stride. During this movement, you ignore difficult terrain and any circumstance status penalties to your speed. So basically, you become like a greased up pig.
Absolutely. Reeb Psyche just said, totally not named after a certain Russian archmage. Not at all. No. Yeah, it's totally not her. Actually, this is kind of a funny thing to talk about. So, when you are dealing with TTRPGs, there's definitely a lot of borrowed language, like the spell Hideous Laughter. Now, what's interesting about this is that you can copyright, in theory, some aspect of this. In this case, Paizo cannot copy the word hideous laughter because it is it's a general thing.
Yeah.
But let's just say you are a coastal mage and you want to reference a specific mage who made a specific variation using their name. You can now copyright that person's name and spell, which is interesting.
It's the same idea as but you can't copyright just the word the or and. That would suck.
Because articles are too. But it's kind of funny because if you think about it, Fireball is completely universal. A lot of TTRPGs have it, at least the big two that we're referencing. Could you imagine if someone made like Bartleby's Fireball?
Yeah. Also, eventually, like I said, eventually stuff like that does fall into the realm of public domain, much like a lot of like fairy tale stories. Like our friend Sydney Rubino
That's
reads
right.
on her YouTube channel.
Yeah, free plug for our great friend Sydney. She, I believe, had a story come out today. I know she had a little bit of not an injury that's a little too severe, but she had a problem and got hurt. But I think she still has the video up, so go check out Sydney Rubino when you get a chance. That being said, well, okay, so the next emotional spell is love. It says you are joined by the bonds of love and nothing can break that. But love can distract you from other things in your life. Your emotional focus is someone you're in love with. They aren't required to love you back. Sorry. That's just one of those things where it's like unrequited love is now a superpower.
It's the Cyrano de Bergerac route.
Oh, I can kind of see that. Yeah, that's interesting. So let's see. Your emotional focus. So whenever your emotional focus takes damage from an enemy within 30 feet of you. Cathartic Activation. If either you or your emotional focus is confused or controlled, one of you can attempt a new saving throw against one confusing or controlling effect, if allowed to save. Ending the condition if the new save is a success. If both of you are eligible, your emotional focus gets the new save. Make sure I'm getting that right. So basically, you or your loved one gets confused or controlled. One of you can attempt a new saving throw against the effect, if you're even allowed to. Ending the condition if the new save is a success. If both of you are eligible, then it's only the emotional focus. Cool.
Yeah, it's worded a little bit confusing.
My brain had to, so the emotional fervor, you get a +1 bonus to will saves. If you cast a spell to benefit your emotional focus, your loved one, then this is increased to +3 until the start of your next turn. The spell you get is called Soothe. You grace the target's mind, boosting its mental defenses and healing its wounds. The target regains 1d10 +4 hit points when you cast the spell and gets a +2 bonus to saves against mental effects until the duration. The duration is 1 minute. Target one willing living creature within 30 feet. The amount of the healing increases by 1 every 1 level. At level 10, or at 10th level, I mean, I don't know if you want to cast a 10th level Soothe, but let's just say you do. A 10th level God Soothe is going to be doing 10d10 +40. And they're gonna get a +2 saves against all mental effects. 10d10 plus 40. That's at least 140 HP. Maybe I'm wrong.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, so the problem is you are fascinated with your emotional focus for 1 minute when the 3 rounds are over. And the focus spell you get is Soothing Words. Soothing Words is 1 round, targets 1 ally within 30 feet for 1 action. You attempt to calm the target by uttering soothing words in a calm and even tone. The target gains a +1 status bonus to will save throws. This increases to +2 against emotional effects. In addition, when you cast this spell, you can attempt to counteract 1 emotion on that target. At 5th level, the bonus saves increase to +2 or +3 against emotional effects. So this is a really good defensive spell. I feel like it's stronger to use mostly as an immediate ending of an effect than it would be a preventative measure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. What was it? But yeah, I also want to read in chat really quick. Yeah, I was going to read what Reap Psyche posted. Oh, not Reap Psyche. Maynard actually posted. It doesn't specify that it has to be romantic love. Important to note.
It's true. It doesn't say it has to be romantic love. It does, however, also stipulate that they do not have to love you back.
Yeah.
So imagine all of the really fun, heartbreaking role play of family, but like a father and son that are like estranged.
So
Goofy.
God of War.
Well, that, but I was gonna say the Goof Troop movie where Max is like, I want to just be my own person, and Goofy's like, well, yeah, but I wanted to be with you when you were your own person. I just, heartbreak.
I prefer the God of War one, maybe for the fact that you could just yell, boy!
I mean, you could yell boy. I mean, he yells boy all the time.
Or
no limitation to how you can cast a boy.
Earlier, when I said Cyrano de Bergerac, I also want to add one of my favorite musicals, Man of La Mancha, or the story Don Quixote is a great example of love here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Also, looking into the chat, Eric Jackson said the time for the other hideous laughter spell to enter the public domain, 95 years from publication or 120 years from creation, whichever expires first. So it's going to be a while.
Yeah. But anyway, let's jump into the next one, which is Misery. Also, a really fun Stephen King story and movie. Yeah. To suffer is to know you're alive. To make your enemies suffer as greatly as you have eases your suffering. Ooh. I'm going to predict this before I read any more. This would go great with a sorcerer hag bloodline. Just saying. But anyway, the trigger here is you gain persistent damage from a foe. Okay, that kind of sucks. Activation, you gain a number of temporary hit points equal to your level. They last for 1 minute. Emotional Fever is you can choose not to attempt a flat check to end persistent damage you're taking. When you cast a damaging spell, you could choose one creature that has failed its save or that you've hit with your spell attack roll. The target takes persistent damage of the same type of spell dealt of an amount equal to the highest amount of persistent damage you currently have. You can't choose a creature that's already taking persistent damage. And the spell here is Phantom Pain, which I have my eye on for a while if I ever play a spellcaster. See, level 1 spell, 2 actions to cast, Somatic Verbal, range of 30 feet, targets one creature, saving throw of will, duration of 1 minute, and Illusionary Pain racks the target, dealing 2d4 mental damage and 1d4 persistent mental damage. The target must attempt a will save. Critical success, the target is unaffected. Success, the target takes full initial damage but no persistent damage, and the spell ends immediately. Failure, the target takes full initial and persistent damage, and the target is sickened 1. If the target recovers from being sickened, the persistent damage ends and the spell ends. And then, critical failure is as failure, but the target is sickened 2. And this is heightened at every level, which the damage increases by 2d4, and the persistent damage is by 1d4. Ooh,
And,
ooh.
and that persistent damage is no joke. I don't know if you all remember when we had the sand scene, when you guys had to fight that giant sandworm. Between you and Wordward both just dropping persistent damages, you basically killed that thing on its turn. It died from all the persistent damage it took.
Yeah, we essentially Kevin Baconed was it a graboid from Tremors. But anyway, the emotional fallout from Misery is you take a untyped penalty to any damage you would deal with any spell you cast until you settle your emotions. The penalty is -1 per spell level. And the focus spell is Savor the Sting. And I'm not talking about the former WCW wrestler. It's Focus 1. It's a one action to cast, somatic, range of touch, targets one creature, saving throw of will. You inflict pain upon the target and revel in their anguish. This deals 1d4 mental damage and 1d4 persistent mental damage. The target must attempt a will save. As long as the target is taking persistent damage from this spell, you gain a +1 status bonus to attack rolls and skill checks against the target. Critical success, the target is unaffected. Success, the target takes half damage and no persistent damage. Failure, the target takes full initial and persistent damage. Critical failure, the target takes double initial and persistent damage. Heightened 1, the initial damage increases by 1d4 and the persistent damage by 1d4. Ooh,
this
ooh,
this is
ooh.
really good.
Yeah. You know what? Like I said before, yeah, the trigger penalty of having to take persistent damage does suck. But if you pair this with the Sorcerer Hag bloodline, you're not Cathartic Mage. You are a Spite Mage.
This is almost one of the perfect abilities because sure the D4 is not the biggest die on the table, but the fact that this is a focus spell and it automatically heightens 1-for-1 means that if you are literally any class with this spell, you're getting free 10d4 damage up front and 10d4 reoccurring that could double on a critical failure, and you are buffing yourself by using this spell effectively.
Yeah.
This is like a 3-for-1. This is
I,
amazing.
I think I want to eventually, at some point in one of our one shots, play a Spite Mage with basically Hag Sorcerer with Cathartic Mage Misery.
Well, what's interesting is that this is also a cleric focus spell.
Yeah.
So you could also be a oh, wait a minute, I just saw something interesting. So I need everyone in the chat or get in the comments and correct me. Savor the Sting has a fun little trait of non-lethal. So that means all this damage is now non-lethal damage, if I'm correct. That means that this amazing damage we're talking about will knock someone out, but it won't kill them. So depends, I guess, there what your tactics are.
At that point, you knock them out and then finish them off some other way, or like just point the barbarian and go, smash their head in.
Do some coup de grace stuff.
Exactly.
It's up to you. But yeah, so that is something special to note, that the non-lethal thing is important. Next up, if you like Seven Deadly Sins and you like my man, what's his name, the tall boy with the big axe and the sun. Why am I blanking? It's not Meliodas. It's not Bon. It's the Lion's Sin of Pride. It was the reference I was trying to make because we're now covering Pride, as well as losing. I'm sorry. As well. Come on, brain.
Escanor.
All is well, Escanor. Thank you. All is well as long as you appear well, but you get caught up in the moment and lose track of what's important. Ain't that the case? Catharsis Trigger. You critically fail on an attack roll or saving throw. More likely than you think. Catharsis Activation. The critical failure now becomes just a failure. And you're thinking, well, who cares? Well, sometimes a critical failure on a spell save, as we've talked about, can be dire. Emotional Fervor. Each time you cast an illusion spell, until the start of your next turn, any critical failure you roll on an attack roll saving throw is a failure instead. So okay, you can't crit fail when you cast illusion magic. That's nice. Or until so you cast illusion spell, and then start of your next turn from there on, any crits or regular failures. You get the spell Color Spray. This one's a good classic. Saving throw will duration 1 or more rounds. See below. 15-foot cone, 2 actions to cast. Swirling colors affect viewers based on their will saves. Critical success. Nothing happens. Success, the creature is dazzled for 1 round. Failure, the creature stunned 1, blinded for 1 round, and dazzled for 1 minute. Critical failure, the creature is stunned for 1 round and blinded for 1 minute. So you just now buff the entire party by giving them a lot of AC and some bonuses to hit with the whole.
Yeah.
I think they're flat-footed. It's been a while since I looked up blinded. Let me look it up really fast. Look at my GM cheat sheet here. Yeah, it's been a while since we got to use this one. Automatically critically fail perception checks require you to see. If your vision is your only precise sense, you take a -4 status penalty to perception checks. You are immune to visual effects. Blind overrides dazzled. So, it only affects perception checks, which is weird. I would imagine that would also do like penalties to hit, but I guess, I mean, I'm sure it does, but the rules as written, it doesn't state that. Let's see, what was that spell that Grandma Spider used that on a crit fail made you believe alive forever? Oh, first of all, great callback. I loved Sam's portrayal of Grandma Spider was amazing. I noticed the one she used to kind of win Ra's rave party. You can't really win a game, but she definitely like VIP'd. I don't remember. I'll have to ask Sam, see if she remembers. So we talked about the color spray spell. The emotional fallout of pride is that you momentarily lose track of what's real, becoming confused for 1 round. And you get another spell called Mirror Image. 3 illusionary images of you swirl about your space, potentially causing those who attack you to hit one of the images instead of you. Good old mirror image. Any attack that would hit you has a random chance of hitting one of your images instead of you. If all 3 images remain, there's a 1 in 4 chance of hitting you. So got to roll a d4. Yeah. You get a 1, it hits you. With 2 images remaining, it's a d3. So 1 to 2 on a d6. And with only 1 image, the chances are 1 and 2. So that's a 1 to 3 on a d6. Once an image is hit, poof, good old-fashioned Kage Bushin no Jutsu, it goes away. Attack roll, fails to hit your AC, but doesn't critically fail, destroys an image, but has no additional effect. So this can just be paired off, and this will last 1 minute. Lastly, but not least, you get Veil of Confidence. It's a focus spell, 1 action, lasts for 1 minute. You surround yourself in a veil of confidence. You reduce your current frightened condition by 1. And whenever you'd become frightened during the duration, reduce that amount by 1. If you critically fail a save against fear, Veil of Confidence ends immediately, and you increase any frightened condition you gain from the critical failure by 1 instead of decreasing it. So that's pride. Pretty interesting, I guess. Yeah. Why don't you finish out the emotions?
All right. Finishing off the emotional states, we have remorse. You attempt to overcome your failings, but your guilt stays with you. Seriously, why do I keep getting these? Why am I? Anyway, the trigger for this is an ally within 30 feet drops to 0 hit points.
Oof.
Activation, you step or stride. You must end this movement closer to the triggering ally. Emotional fever is any spell you cast that restores hit points to the triggering ally gets a status bonus to hit points healed equal to the spell's level or double the spell's level if the ally is at 0 hit points. And the spell you get is called Warrior's Regret. Second level spell, 2 actions to cast, somatic and verbal, range of touch, targets 1 creature, and a saving throw of will. Regret eats away at the target's mind, punishing it for its violence until it ceases its hostility. The target must attempt a will save. Critical success, the target is unaffected. Success, at the end of its next turn, the target takes 1d8 damage per different creature it intentionally damages on that turn. 1d8 if the damage one creature. 1d8 if it damaged one creature, 2d8 if it damaged two different creatures, and so on. The maximum is 4d8 if it damaged four different creatures. Failure. As a success, accept the curse damages the target at the end of each of its turns and lasts until the target spends a complete round without intentionally damaging another creature. Critical failure is at success, except the curse damages the creature at the end of each of its turns and lasts until the target spends 24 hours atoning for its perceived sins. And as a heightened 2, the amount of mental damage the target takes for each creature it damaged that turn increases by 1d8, and the maximum damage the target can take per turn is increased by 4d8.
Yep, per 2 levels you cast this at. So level 4, that's going to be another 2d8 with a maximum of 8d8 at level 10. If you want to do a god level Warriors of Regret, that's going to be 5d8 per creature hit with a maximum of 20d8, I want to say. Also, I'm really curious about this spell because it sounds awesome. However, there is no time limit on this spell that's written. I'm wondering if the book says different.
It's page 140.
Yeah, I'm looking it up. Does not say it, but I think it really comes down to how badly they fail. Because on a failure, they get the same way as success, except the curses damages the target at the end of each of its turns and lasts until they take a whole round doing nothing. So I want to say a success means it only lasts for one round until the end of the next turn, which it does say. So my mistake, it does say that. And then a critical failure, this thing lasts for 24 hours, which is bonkers because they could definitely die if they're too stubborn.
Yeah. The emotional fallout for this is your emotional weight crushes you, leaving you stupefied until you settle your emotions. Focus spell is called Healer's Blessing. And let's see, it's one focus, casts of one action verbal, 30 feet range, targets one willing living creature, and a duration of 1 minute. Your words bless a creature with an enhanced connection to positive energy. When the target regains hit points from a healing spell, it regains 2 additional hit points. The target regains additional hit points from Healer's Blessing only for the first time it regains HP from a given healing spell. So, a spell that heals a creature repeatedly over a duration will restore additional healing hit points only once. And Heightened 1 is the additional healing increases by 2 HP.
So it's kind of a nice healer's buff, if you will, and probably the only healer's buff I can think of. It is kind of limited, but you have to take in consideration that if you are a cleric, you take the right feat, instead of dealing D8s, your heals are doing D10s. And if you're doing 2 actions, it's a D10 plus, I want to say, plus 8. And I don't remember if the wisdom modifier is added to that as well. I don't think it is. But since it's a focus spell, at level 20, that means they're getting a bonus 20 HP every time you heal them.
I want to say that it's actually really good because this actually happened to us on EOL once, where one character got a lot of damage, but everybody got damaged too. So I think it was Alona needed to heal everybody, but the AOE healing spell didn't really help too much with the person that got healed, got hit really, really hard. So they had to use another action to heal them with one action spell. With this, drop Healer's Blessing on the critically injured person, and then area effect healing spell, and everybody gets the benefits.
Yeah, the one really cool thing about clerics is that their healing font is so powerful because all the healing spells that you have in that little side pocket, they are automatically heightened. I believe the highest spell level you can cast. So if you're like able to cast level 2 or 3 level spells, and you're having those oh crap moments, and you realize that a level 1 healing AOE isn't really going to give you the buffer you need, you can like take one of those at like second or third level and just go, everyone get plus 3d 10 HP, get off your asses.
Yeah.
But I love Remorse because they even mention with the focus spell that Remorse is definitely the healer emotion. This is something that gives healers not only the potential to really hurt the bad guy with Warrior's Regret, but to really kind of buff the necessary healing for the teammates.
I do want to say that that trigger is it's pretty heavy. It's a pretty heavy trigger. I'm wondering if what is it? Cathartic the Carthartic ability that lets you work up to that. So basically you force your ally to go at 0 HP.
Well, thankfully, it doesn't do that. It just forces you to enter the emotional catharsis. The 8th level feat, work yourself up. Basically, it allows you to activate all the catharsis powers without having your teammate drop.
Good. I was gonna say that would suck. Like, I'm gonna help you, but first I need to kill you.
Now, the cool thing is that the activation allows you to step or stride, and you have to move closer to the triggering ally. So you activate your emotion, you automatically then get to move your full speed. So this is great if you want to keep the tank alive.
Yeah.
But you want to prevent them from dropping to begin with. You can activate this, move up to them, and use a one-action heal to buff them, or move towards them, activate Healer's Blessing. So on the next round, you can drop 2-action heal with the bonus 2, 4, 6, 8 on top of it. Really, really good for healers on the run.
Really quick, jumping in the chat, Lost Thought, is this all in the core rulebook? No, this sadly is not in the core rulebook. This is in the additional book called Secrets of Magic.
That's right. Some of the spells and abilities that are connected to the Cathartic Mage may be in the Advanced Player's Guide or the core rulebook, but this archetype, the Cathartic Mage, which can benefit clerics, wizards, champions, fighters, rogues, that can be found here in the Secrets of Magic book, and this one has artwork that looks like Joe Manganiello. I can never get his name right because I'm like, how Italian do I got to pronounce it? And I say that as an Italian.
Honestly, get this book. If you're able to get this book because it is loaded up with amazing art.
Yeah, the art is amazing. If you can see, there's our boy Joe right there. Amazing artwork. The archetypes alone, not even covering the 2 big classes they released, which are dummy thick with awesomeness, but the archetypes alone create such a very fun and engaging way to be a caster, or even as a non-caster, to get a little something. Yeah. Speaking of which, we're running out of time, so we got to start burning through these. What a better thing to burn than the Elementalist archetype. Were we gonna say Michael? Sorry, I think I said.
I said. Well, I was gonna say. Lost Thought posted. I'm gonna call him Emotion Lord, or you could be like me and call him the Vibe Mage.
I mean, they're both good. Emotion Lord has a kind of that D&D and Pathfinder needs, but Vibe Mage is so chef's kiss, Michael. I got to give you credit for that. All right, next up, Elementalist. Why don't you read the introduction?
All right. The Elementalist, Secrets of Magic, page 206. You revere the 4 elements: air, earth, fire, and water. And then, one day, the Fire Nation attack. Just kidding. As the building blocks of creation and the source of all life, you believe that by balancing, mixing, and rearranging these 4 elements, magic is made. This belief has led you to eschew traditional magical theories and divisions, and you instead focus on harnessing and manipulating and shaping the 4 elements. You cast spells drawn from multiple traditions, and you can use the 4 elements to alter and empower your spells, making them manifest and mixing them in unique ways. Most elementalists embrace the 4 elements equally as a mystical quantilarity, and they strengthen their connection to one of those elements each day to protect themselves from harm. Others, notably sorcerer and wizard elementalists, feel a stronger connection to singular element as they hone to great heights, utilizing the other 3 elements to support and augment their favored elements.
Now
Yeah, so,
this.
oh, sorry.
Oh no, keep going, please.
I was going to say, so yeah, basically you're kind of the avatar.
Yeah, this is also a great way for players to create concentrated mages. Like, for example, the fire mages. You know, we all know that one person who's like, I really want to be like someone who specializes in a bunch of fire spells, or lightning spells. I want to be like Ramu from Final Fantasy 14. This is a good way to do that. At level 1, you get a class modification. It's called Elemental Magic. At first level, you are a spellcaster that specializes in harnessing the 4 elements. Though you might feel a stronger kinship to one element over the others, that you're capable of shaping all of them. Due to your specialization in elemental magic, you have a smaller, more focused spell list than other spellcasters. So, kind of like last week we covered, I forgot which one it was, Geomancy or Rune Lords. But effectively, instead of getting the full spell list, it's going to be pared down. We'll get to that in a second. And you must select the Elemental Dedication feat as your second level class feat. Prereqs, you must have a spellclassing cast feature that chooses spells from either the Arcane or Primal spell list. So Wizards and Druids, you're a shoo-in. Elemental Adjustment. You replace your spell list with the Elemental spell list. Your actual magic tradition is unchanged, but you choose your spells from this list instead. If you are a sorcerer with an elemental bloodline, you can replace your initial bloodline with an initial element-focused spell, and your advanced bloodline spell with the advanced elemental-focused spells. The initial advanced elemental-focused spells you select must have the same trait as your elemental bloodline. So, pretty much, it's obvious. If you're a fire elemental sorcerer, choose the fire stuff. The Druid Elementalist adjustments. If you're a Druid of the Storm Order, you can choose to replace your starting order spell, Tempest Surge, with Updraft. The Wizard Elemental adjustment, this one's pretty big. I'll try to cut it down. If you're a wizard with an arcane school, instead of specializing in a school of magic, you instead choose one of the 4 elements. Any benefits the arcane school you would get that are associated with the select spell school, you instead apply to your element. So, like, for example, if you get air as your element, you can prepare only spells that have the air trait in your extra arcane school slots. Makes sense, right? You can prepare also 1 extra air-based cantrip, and you can add 1 extra air spell from the elemental spell list to your spell book. Let's see. In place of your arcane school spell, you learn the initial elemental focus spell of your selected element. In other ways, your school still functions as written in the core rulebook. The only difference is that you're not pulling from like evocation. You're pulling directly from fire, wind, etc. So here's the elemental focus spells that you can get at level 1. If you choose air, your initial is Updraft. Updraft is a basic reflex save, 1 creature within 60 feet, levels 1 for 1. A powerful blast of wind erupts in the ground, launching the target into the air, sending it crashing back down. The collision deals 2d6 bludgeoning damage with a basic reflex save. On a failure, the target is knocked prone, and for every level it is increased by, as a focus spell, it's automatic, it's another 2d6, which means at level 10, that's probably 20d6 damage before a critical failure would make it 40d6. This is surprisingly powerful. Your next air elemental spell is Powerful Inhalation. You rapidly draw the air from your surroundings, hoarding it for yourself. Creatures in the area when the spell is cast take 5d6 bludgeoning damage with a basic fortitude save. That means double potential damage on a critical fail. A creature that fails its save can't speak above a raspy whisper for 1 round. A creature that critically fails can't speak or use abilities that require it to breathe for 1 round. This prevents it from using effects that require speech, such as casting with verbal components, and from using breath weapons or similar ability. The fact that you can finally turn off breath weapons is really cool. Creatures made of air, such as air elementals, attempting to save, get 1 degree worse. So they're more than likely to critical fail more than anyone else. It's a 10-foot emanation. This is a pretty kick-ass spell, I'm not going to lie. Next up, what's that, Michael?
Oh, I was saying, do you want to, should I take earth, and then you take fire, and I take water?
Sure, let's do that.
All right. Earth. The initial spell here is called Crushing Ground. Focus of 1. 2 action to cast, Somatic and Verbal, range of 60 feet, targets 1 creature, saving throw is Reflex, duration of 1 round, you tear open the ground and then slam it shut. The target takes a 2d6 bludgeoning damage with a Reflex save. Critical success, the target is unaffected. Success, the target takes half damage. Failure, the target takes full damage, is flat-footed, and takes a 10-foot circumstance penalty to speed. Critical failure, the target takes double damage, is flat-footed, and immobilized. It could attempt an escape against your DC spell DC. If it doesn't escape, the target takes an additional 2d6 bludgeoning damage when the spell ends. It's heightened 1, which increases the initial damage and the additional damage by 2d6. Ooh, that is sick. That is sick.
It's also really powerful. These focus spells don't suck at all.
The Stone Lance is focus 3, casts of 2 actions, Somatic and Verbal, range of 120 feet, targets 1 creature with a duration of 1 minute. You conjure a jagged lance of stone, and then launch it at a foe. Make a spell attack roll against the target. On a hit, you deal 6d6 piercing damage, and the lance impales the creature, giving it a minus 10-foot circumstance penalty to its speed unless it escapes. On a critical hit, if the creature is on the ground, the lance also embeds into the ground and immobilizes the creature until it escapes. A creature that escapes after being impaled takes 3 persistent bleed damage. When the spell ends, the lance crumbles into dirt, freeing the target if it hasn't escaped. And Heightened 1 increases the damage by 2d6, and the persistent bleed damage for escapes by 1.
So this at end game, and it's a focus, so it's going to level up no matter what. This is doing 20 d6 piercing damage, and it's going to be doing 20 persistent bleed damage. It's a 2 action to cast. Oh my god.
Yeah. Lost Thought posted, could the lance serve as a hand/foothold before the spell ends? I mean, that's up to the GM, but I don't see why not. But I think there's other spells that would be that you cast at lower levels that does the same exact thing. I would probably, honestly, this would be my pocket I'm gonna hurt ya spell.
Oh yeah, this is a really heavy hitter. I feel like, and because it's a focus spell, you could have a maximum of 3 of these uses before you have to put it away.
Yeah.
So in theory, yeah, you could use 3, but it's like using a Moab to try and hit a gopher hole.
Yeah.
You're gonna do it. Do you want to do it?
Yeah.
Okay, fire. Then the Fire Nation attacked. Wildfire. This is the first focus spell. 30-foot range, 10-foot burst, saving throws reflex, sustained up to 1 minute. So it's not an automatic minute. You have to spend an action every round to keep it going for a minute. A thin layer of ash and flame covers the ground in the area. The area becomes hazardous terrain. A creature that moves on the ground through the area takes 1 fire damage for every square of that area it moves through. A creature that ends its turn in the area must succeed a reflex save or take 1 persistent fire damage. Each time you sustain this spell, the radius of the burst increases by 5 feet. For every 2 levels, it's heightened. The damage that you take and the persistent damage is increased by 1. This one is kind of underwhelming in my opinion. The range gets bigger every round, up to, I think, a maximum of 40 feet burst. But the damage is so small that unless they're like a goblin with like 5 HP and they've already taken a hit, it's the likelihood of this really being effective, even with the difficult terrain, I don't think it's really there.
I feel this is one of those, GMs could end up being creative. Like, I don't know, a certain investigator decides to soak the area in oil and then use wildfire, and that probably do a little bit more. GM's discretion.
Yeah, absolutely GM's discretion. you also have the issue of like kind of balancing mechanics. If they slip and fall, that doesn't count as moving through the squares. It may do more damage depending on the rules. You may add an extra D4 damage to it, and that could be nice. It's really kind of a sticky situation. Yeah. Speaking of sticky, this is not sticky at all. The advanced one is Combustion, focus level 3 spell, a range 120 feet, 1 creature, saving throws fortitude. You ignite a creature in lasting flames. This fire deals 4d8 damage and 2d6 persistent fire damage to a creature, which must attempt a fortitude save. Critical success, the creature is unaffected. Success, of course, they take half and no persistent damage. Failure, they take full of both. Critical, they take double of both. So at level 6, that means they could take 8d8 fire damage and 4d6 persistent fire damage. And that fire damage could last up to a minute. So it's 4d6 fire damage per round for about 10 rounds. Yeah. Heightened, which is a 1-for-1. So that means at level 20, this is going to be gorgeous. Increases the initial damage by another d8, the persistent damage by another d6. So let's do the whole thing. Level 10, that's going to be 7 more d8s. That's going to be 11 d8 fire damage. And that's going to be 9d6 persistent fire damage. I might be off by 1. It's still a lot. Yeah. And if that's doubled, it's about 20 d8 fire damage, give or take, like 22 d8 fire damage, and it's about 20 d6 persistent fire damage at level 20.
Yeah. Persistent damage kills.
Especially when it's like 20 d6. There are some high-level spells that end at 20 d6 that cast once. You're doing 20 d6 fire damage on a critical fail for a minute every round at the end of their turn.
It's pretty much what Rufa and Woodward did to that sandworm times 20.
Yeah, it's bonkers. Going to chat, Reap Psyche says, once I had a druid cast Wall of Fire, then grapple someone as an large air elemental, and then pulled them through the wall 3 times in 1 round. DM said you can't do that, and that's can't do that and have to do the damage multiple times, but I always felt like it really should have. Oh, I don't know. That's a tough call, but it's good. So Combustion's good. The Wildfire, a little sus, but Combustion,
yeah,
so good.
I would say, like I said before, the initial spell of Wildfire is one of those be creative and have a creative GM that's willing to work with you. But anyway, let's jump over to water, the water tribes. See, initial is called Rising Surf. 1 action cast, somatic, with a range of 30 feet. You create a wave of water that you ride, making around obstacles and surfing to higher ground. You move up to 35 feet, raising yourself up to 5 feet above the ground. You can avoid many types of difficult terrain this way. You must end your movement on an unoccupied space where you have solid footing. The movement isn't stride, but the measure of distance in a similar way, and it still triggers reactions caused by movement. You can't transport anyone else with you. Heightened 2 is increase the distance you move by 5 feet, and the maximum height traveled above the ground by 5 feet. This reminds me of, how in Marvel Comics, Iceman uses his ice ability to kind of, create that pathway of ice. It's basically that, but instead of ice, it's water.
Yeah, I really love that you are literally surfing. You are magically surfing.
Yeah.
And doing the math. I'm sorry, what was that saying?
Oh, I was going to say, you're basically Johnny Tsunami or a surf ninja.
Yeah. And what's really cool about this, doing the math at level 20, right? That's a bonus 40 speed of movement, I believe, if I'm doing my math right. So that means you can move about 75, 80 feet forward and about 25, 40 feet off the ground. So this may not be the attack spell you want it to be, but the fact that it's only 1 action for somatic only casting means you're basically tripling or quadrupling your 1 stride action, and then you can take 2 more if you want to.
I want to say, yeah, it is. I'm actually looking it up. It's pretty. Wait, checking. Yeah, it's pretty much the only non-damage elemental focus spell on the list, and
Mm-hmm.
I actually like it because this one gives you utility, which
Mm-hmm.
honestly, it's overlooked but so useful.
I mean, just 40 feet high, 80-foot forward
Mhm.
with one action is like monk level mobility BS.
It's
And
a
it is
yeah,
so good.
it's essentially fly. It's a limited fly spell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but anyway, the advanced elemental focus spell is called Pulverizing Cascade. Focus of 3, cast 2 action, somatic and verbal, range of 120 feet, area of a 10-foot radius, 20-foot cylinder, and a saving throw. It's a basic reflex. You raise a pair of towering waves and slam them into each other. Basically, you're Moses. Um, Crushing creatures caught between them. Creatures in the area takes 5d6 bludgeoning damage with a basic reflex save. Heighten 1, increase the damage by 2d6. Yeah, this is essentially parting of the Red Seas at the end.
And then the smashing. And what's crazy about it, we were just saying like the last focus spell is this amazing mobility spell with
Mm,
no real attack benefit. But meanwhile, this spell can do about 20 d6 bludgeoning damage to a 10-foot
yeah.
radius and a 20-foot tall cylinder area. And on a critical fail, that's now 40 d6. So it
Mm-hmm.
kind of covers that base for you and then some.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's finally jump into the feats and the dedication. So, PJ, why don't you take us away with the Elementalist dedication?
Sure thing. At level 2, this is mandatory if you've chosen this at level 1 as well. Prerequisites, elemental magic, you already got it. Each day when you make your daily preparations, you can attune yourself to one element of your choice: air, earth, fire, water, heart, go planet. You gain resistance equal to half your level against the damage dealt by effects that you are attuned elementally. This attunement lasts until you make your next daily preparation. Of course, this is a minimum 1 resistance. So that means you can just get like a free 10 resistance to fire
Yeah.
or whatever. So it's pretty good at level 2, and it grows with you, which is always good.
Yeah, it's a really great ability, especially if you kind of have an inkling of where your party is going to be at. Because if you're going to be in a tundra-like environment,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, what is it? Probably water or air or something. If you're in the middle of a lava field, or you're going to one of the elemental planes, like the elemental plane of fire, yeah, I'm gonna be stupid if I don't take resistance to elemental fire resistance.
Yep. Why don't you get the next one, the Dowsing Spell
Mm-hmm.
feat?
All right. Feat level 4 is Dowsing Spell. It's one action, and a prereq is an Elementalist dedication. You enhance your spell with elemental water, soaking the target. If the next action you use is to cast a spell targeting a single creature, you soak the target of the spell with water. If the target has persistent acid or fire damage, the DC to end these conditions is reduced to 10, and the creature can attempt a flat check to end those types of persistent damage immediately. The spell gains the water trait, causing it to deal extra damage to creatures with weaknesses to water. Uh,
This is a weird one.
I want to say because there are some there are spells like create water
Yes,
that.
but well, yeah, but the big thing here is that when you cast any spell, specifically on a target, because think about creating water or creating food and water, whatever the spell may be in this edition, is that it's not like you're not really attacking someone. You're creating it in an area, and then you could argue with gravity, it falls on people, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
But this feels more like if you cast fireball. Now after the fireball, there's some water effect that will remove the acid or fire persistent damage, or the DC of those conditions is dropped down to 10, and they can make a check automatically to do that. And this is weird because, like, I feel like if you're using something to remove a debuff on an enemy, that's not very much worth it. But if you're using it to maybe cast a buff spell on an ally, maybe that's where the trick is. But if you use this with an offensive spell, you can hurt people who are weak to water. It's got flexibility, but the tactics are not obvious. You really
Yeah,
have to kind of
yeah.
work. You have to screw with it a bit.
Like I said, I feel that this spell, if it's situational. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
your ally on fire. You can cast
Mm-hmm.
create water. It might help a little bit, but this guarantees you that the condition to reduce fire damage will be reduced by 10. It's one of those, as you said before, if you pay me, you have to.
Yeah, because like if you're like I want to cast the create water to put out the fire, and the GM's like I don't know, rules is written that won't really work, blah blah blah. Then you'd be like, okay, well it does now because of Dowsing Spell.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's weird, and then you can use it to do more damage to certain people who have weakness to water. But I digress.
Hmm.
Next up, Elemental Familiar. This is another level 4 feat. Your familiar becomes an elemental spirit capable of taking on aspects of the four elements. Other than taking the form of an elemental instead of an animal, this familiar continues to use all the same rules as other familiars. Your familiar gains one additional ability each day, which must be one of the following elemental familiar abilities. So if you're like a witch or a wizard with a familiar, or a druid with a familiar instead of an animal companion, this is a fun way to get into like the I have a fire badger, I have a earth bat. Um, Air. If your familiar stays completely still for one round, it becomes
Ooh.
invisible until the next action it takes. Any motion, even being moved or carried by another creature, ends this effect. Earth. Your familiar gains resistance to physical damage except adamantine, equal to half your level. Really good if you don't want your familiar dying. Then again, so is Earth. Fire. Your familiar sheds bright light in a 20-foot radius and dim light for the next 20 feet and emits warmth. Creatures that remain within the 15-foot emanation don't take damage from severe environmental cold. Great for survival games in cold, dark places. Water. Your familiar can move through a gap at least 2 inches wide without squeezing, and can squeeze through a gap at least 1 inch wide.
I want to say the air one is the most useful, especially if you use your familiar as a scout.
Yes, but again, it can't move, or else it's noticeable again. If it's like
Mm.
stationary,
Yeah,
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 it's fine.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
what I mean. Like, if you want to keep an eye on like an enemy encampment, yeah, it's gonna move through the woods and park its butt on a tree, and then just from there stay still, invisible.
Mhm. Very true.
It's
I'm. Oh, I was gonna say I'm gonna move on just so we can
okay.
skip this next one because it's very
Hmm.
kind of upfront and obvious. There's another level 4 feat called Familiar. You get a familiar.
Yeah. Hmm. What I
Um,
wanted to say before was
mhm.
basically your familiar becomes one of those home security cams.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, especially with the remote viewing, I
yeah,
think
yeah,
so
yeah,
some
yeah,
familiars give. Yeah,
yeah,
see that's kind of cool. Yeah.
yeah. All right. The next feat here is at level 6 called Burning Spell, which is one action. Prereqs is Elementalist Dedication. You enhance your spell with elemental fire, causing it to set the target on fire. If the next action you use is to cast a non-cantric spell that deals damage at a single target, the spell deals additional persistent fire damage equal to the spell level, in addition to its other effects. This has no effect if the spell already deals persistent fire damage. The spell gains the fire trait.
Cool. So like obviously the fire trait means that if the creature's immune to fire and
Yeah.
this spell is not a fire spell traditionally,
Hmm.
then well there you go. But you could do other effects like I'm going to do hideous laughter, or no, it has to do damage. So it
Hmm.
could be like
Yeah.
I'm going to do try to think of a non-fire related spell that oh gosh, like a cone of cold or whatever,
Hmm.
right? Then it's like cone of cold, also burning afterwards.
Hmm.
That's kind of weird. I
Yeah.
like that.
I want to say a great way to combine this with a earth-based spell that causes you to throw like earth or rocks or something, because essentially that becomes brimstone.
Oh yeah, or just like molten rock,
Yeah,
like the lava
yeah,
dragon that almost killed
exactly,
me.
exactly.
Um, Enhanced Familiar is the next level 6 feat. This version of the Enhanced Familiar feat is intended for use with an archetype and has a different level of access than the original feat. This is basically one of those feats that they take from other classes and put into this one. And now you infuse your familiar with additional magical energy, which allows you to select 4 more familiar or master level abilities each day instead of normally 2. Special if you're a wizard and your arcane thesis is improved familiar attunement, your familiar's base number of familiar abilities before adding any extra abilities for the arcane thesis is 4, and the witch, add the bonus familiar abilities you gain for being a witch to this amount. So you're balancing out the bonuses.
Hey, PJ, I just realized something. The Elementalist with the familiar, it's essentially on with either Appa or Momo.
Oh yeah, they're both aired. Well, they're not really aired because they're not invisible, but
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah. Anyway, the next feat here is at level 8 called Current Spell, which is 1 action. Oh, this one doesn't even have a prereq.
Nice.
Yeah. As you use your magic to manipulate air or water, you divert some of its currents from a barrier around you. If your next action is to cast a spell with the air or water trait, until the start of your next turn, you gain a +1 circumstance bonus to AC or +2 circumstance bonus against ranged spells. The effect has air or water trait or both, depending on the effects of the spell you cast. You also gain a +1 circumstance bonus to all saves against the effects of the air trait, water trait, or both until the start of your turn, depending on the spell's traits.
Yeah, so it's kind of like after you cast a spell, you get like a water bubble around you a little bit.
Yeah.
Next up, this is another level 8 feat called Metabolized Element. It's a reaction. If you take damage from a foe spell or magical ability with one of the 4 traits in it, you get to use this ability, which basically gives you absorb it in, get a boost of energy, which gives you the quickened condition until the end of your next turn. You can use this extra action only to step or stride. So, fireball, I got it. I'm going to run away now. It's nice.
Yeah, it's not bad. Speaking of running away, Water Step is next, which is also a level 8 spell. Once again, this one has no prereq. You can stride across liquids and surfaces that don't support your weight. This benefit lasts only during your movement. If you end your movement on a surface that can't support you, you fall in or collapse as normal. Reminds me of those water skimmer bugs that skims across the water.
Absolutely. And what's interesting to note is that this is technically a monk feat, but you can get it from this even though you're not a monk. Which is interesting because the next one, this is a pure elementalist feat. You're not borrowing from a monk, which is still kind of cool. It's called Rock Slide Spell. It's 1 action. It's a meta magic feat to enhance a spell you're about to cast. Basically, enhance your spell with elemental earth, causing chunks of stone to litter the ground. If the next action you use is to cast a non-cantrip spell that affects an area, a number of 5-foot squares in the area equal to the spell level become difficult terrain for 1 round. These squares must be on the ground, and the entire area of difficult terrain must be contiguous. The spell then gains the earth trait. So basically, congratulations, you did fireball with the rock slide. Now the entire area of the fireball is difficult terrain.
It's lava. Don't step on the lava.
The floor is lava.
Yep. All right. Next up is a level 12 feat called Redirect Elements, which is a reaction. Prereq for this one is Elementalist Dedication, and the trigger is the spell attack roll for a foe spell with an elemental trait triggering your fails or rewind. The spell attack roll for a foe spell with an elemental trait targeting you fails or critically fails. You seize the elemental essence of an incoming spell and redirect the spell to a creature of your choice within the spell's area. The attacker rerolls the spell's attack roll against a new target. Oh, this was actually really cool. Yeah.
And that's interesting because like they're now the center of the AoE, right?
Yeah, you're essentially bending someone else's elemental spell.
100%. And this is interesting because if it's like one creature within like 120 feet and now it's on you, now you have another 120 feet between you and the target to redistribute the spell, right?
Yeah.
But if it's an AoE spell, you could redirect it within that same area, affect the enemy, and now make it that it's no longer affecting you and your teammates.
Yeah, backfire.
This is really cool. Yeah. That's definitely worth a level 12. I wonder if it's going to be better than this last one. This is the capstone Elementalist ability. It's called Wind Tossed Spell, 1 action. It's a meta magic feat. You enhance your spell with elemental air, causing the wind to find your target and carry your magic around cover. If the next action you use is to cast a spell that requires a spell attack roll, you ignore the target's concealed condition and any cover they have from you. This spell gains the air trait. So if you are using a ranged spell attack that, them getting total cover would make it very hard to hit them. You're now doing the spell sniper stuff from like 3.5 where you could like I think they used to call like the mailman caster. You go around cover and get to them.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's kind of like that movie Wanted. Instead of bending the bullet, you're bending the spell.
100%, and it's still within the movement or the range of the spell. So again, if you're like doing a 120-foot spell, it's now going within 120 feet.
Yeah, it's kind of like Rangers have a lot of these kinds of feats and abilities where they could ignore cover. This is basically a spellcaster version of that.
Yeah, and it goes beyond cover to like concealment condition as well. So like I think even if they're getting certain benefits that are technically not cover, I think they can still get some concealment there. And this does like, nope, get me anyway. Yeah. So it's really good.
Yeah. I also really want to say, because I know we're running short on time, that one of the cool things about Elementalists is there's an entire spell list just for Elementalists now.
That's right. The elemental spell list itself, which was really cool because even when you go to Archives of Nethys, you see that, now the amount of spell lists you can pull from, still Arcane, Divine, Occult, and Primal, very cool. But now you can also pull from the elemental spell list. Yeah. And just like everything else, they have cantrips up to 10th level spells, which is going to make being a druid, being a wizard, even more exciting and daunting, because now you have at least 1 to 2 schools of magic you can pull from at any point in time.
I would say I would actually love to play a Elementalist spellcaster as a druid, because druids do have access to later on their wild shape. They can wild shape into an elemental.
That's true. That's very, very true. Dude, I don't think any of it actually stacks with that, though.
True. But I just realized this. You could play. You're basically a planeteer that transforms themselves into Captain Planet.
You know what? Actually, that's kind of an interesting point. How come we don't actually have a Captain Planet spell? We have a Goku ability for the monks. How come the druids don't have Captain Planet?
Yeah.
Just saying. Hey, and listen, you in the comments, if you know there's a spell that turns someone into Captain Planet, like a 10th or 9th level druid spell, let us know. Correct us, because that's how we learn.
I kind of want to say it's the elemental form spell, but you're just of that one element.
Yeah, because there is like the greater elemental form spells, and you get some pretty cool perks. And of course, there's also the kaiju spell where you turn into a kaiju. Maybe that's Captain Planet.
Combine that, Captain Planet. Oh my God! I just realized this. If you could somehow add the cosmic version of that, you could become an Ultraman.
You know what? See, now you've inspired me, and I'm going to write this out eventually to create the Nature's Champion and the Cosmic Champion Druid spells so that you turn into Captain Planet or Ultraman as a Druid. Only Druids get this access. It's that dope.
All right. Well, I guess, you know what? If you go by kaiju lore, Gamera is technically Earth Protector. Yeah. You can turn into a giant turtle and spin around and shoot fire.
I was going to say, wasn't Gamera like the spirit of like nature and like childhood whimsy? Like something.
Kids love him. He's so
adorable. Who could blame them?
Yeah, you even have a song, Gamera, Gamera, Gamera. Essentially, it's just his name back and forth.
I mean, it's effective.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, that being said, we have hit our time. Unfortunately, we weren't able to cover the Soul Forger, but we can definitely come back because this book right here, Pathfinder: Secret of Magic, that came out earlier this month and on PDFs in August, has so much content.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
much that we're
yeah.
still scratching the surface. We haven't even covered the two big classes. We will eventually, I guarantee that. But the Soul Forger, let me just give you a little tease because I like to tease. This is the artwork for the Soul Forger. Look at that iconic paladin just Iron Manning up. And
Like
we will go into more details about that later.
We talked about this before. You described the Soul Forger as pretty much a common writer fantasy style.
Very much. There's a lot of other things like infusions and special armaments that you can build. But again, we'll get that another time. This weekend, if you haven't already heard the hype, there's going to be Gen Con online. Paizo is going to have a lot of people there. Unfortunately, we tried to get involved with that, but schedules weren't working out. So we're going to instead be LARPing and having good time as humans do. Yeah. And when we come back, when they make the announcement about the new playtest, I think fingers crossed we're going to try and cover the playtest.
Yeah. I want to say a couple things really quick. I believe Paizo won't physically be there. They will be doing their Gen Con online, virtually.
Yeah, so it's going to be kind of like there is a list of things that they're going to be doing. So if you go to Gen Con online, there will be a Paizo. Oh, bless you. There will be like a Paizo part where it's just all the stuff they're doing in their segment. So go check it out. Go support it. I think that being said, it's time to say goodbye.
Before we do, I just want to do a little housekeeping really quick. Since we did talk about the Elementalists and the Cathartic Mage, got it right? Those two, thoughts, really quick thoughts.
Oh, my thoughts.
Yeah, your thoughts.
Okay, so the Cathartic Mage I love because all of these are magic-based archetypes, and very few of them allow for non-wizards and non-druids to participate. I love how the Cathartic Mage allows for non-magical characters to get involved and create some amazing combinations, like the Dedication or Love Paladin, the Cleric of Remorse. Like, these are awesome ways to further specialize and further create a unique character that you don't get anywhere else. The Elementalist is dope, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely a very fun way to create a unique blaster mage. So I think for me, Cathartic Mage on top.
I like the Carthartic Mage mainly for the fact that it actually, like you said before, it pairs well with certain emotional states pair well with martial classes, especially classes like Champion, or as you said before, Rogue. Elementalist, I actually liked Elementalist for the fact that it gives you further options, especially as a druid. That's one of the things I really like, and also it helps cover some of the weaknesses of wizards as well.
I think you make a very good point. Especially if you want to be a very specialized blaster wizard. Everyone likes being a fire mage, right? Or an ice mage or whatever. And also the druid is cool. One of the things I've found though is that druid magic or primal magic kind of suffers in the damage department, but the offset is that while you're doing some amount of damage, not nearly as powerful as other spells, you have this added controller effect, this debuff effect, and that's nice. But sometimes you just want a fireball to the face. And I think you make a good point. The Elementalist also enhances the spell casting components of druids as well.
Yeah, like give druids the earth Elementalist trait. With that, was it Stone Lance? The
updraft spell where it's like, it's my level 1 spell. I'm just going to drop 20 d6 damage on you because I want to.
So basically, honestly, it turns druids into a blaster spellcaster, honestly.
Yeah, a much more reliable blaster mage. And I think that's good. Everyone needs to do damage. One more thought before we say our goodbye. Speaking of thought, it is... Adam Generator, hello, great to see you in the chat. He says, a love paladin? That's the horny bar trope on steroids. Yeah, it's basically Tobias. But you're not wrong.
I
That
just
being,
want to.
oh
I
no,
just
what were you
want to
saying?
add something really quick to that. Once
Mhm.
again, I think it was Maynard or Reap Psyche that said this in chat that it doesn't say it has to be romantic love. There's
Mhm.
many different kinds of love out there. So, and also another thing is one of the things I think is really cool is you could basically be Don Quixote, and with that unrequited love, love from afar. So I think that's really cool.
Absolutely. Before we start saying goodbyes, I want to confirm Pengu Chan put in a request for us to raid Mr. Bluesuit. I don't know if they are
Mm-hmm.
being polite by giving them the titlerific of Mr. or if that's their Twitch name. So we're going to be raiding Mr. Bluesuit
Mm-hmm.
in a second here. I just need a confirmation on the name so I can raid appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
So in the chat, if you get a chance, tell me exactly the person's name and channel so we can raid them. But while we're waiting for that, Mr. Michael Powell, why don't you tell them who you are and where they can find you on this sweet, sweet internet?
Well, as always, I am the dastardly, dashing Michael Powell, and you can find me all over the internet on my social medias, which is usually at Mr. Kapow, that's MRKAPAO, or my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/ Michael Powell Does Stuff, because I do a lot of stuff like my YouTube channel called Fantastic Tales of Adventure. Or you can find me on Thursdays on the Toyzilla Network channel for Toyzilla Live at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we talk about toy news and all that nostalgia fun stuff. Oh, and I also want to add that this week I'm going to be super busy because I will be involved in two other things. First up
Ooh.
is Purgatory Cafe is opening up again on September 16th, which is this Thursday after Toyzilla Live at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time via live action roleplay on Twitch. So really excited about that. Looking forward to joining Ryan Omega and the rest of the gang to once again open up the cafe. And also on Saturday, September 18th, I will be interviewing Olivia Hack, who was the voice actress of Ty Lee on Avatar The Last Airbender, for a special Funko Pop signing on Toyzilla Network from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I believe if you go right now on Toyzilla.com, you could order one of these signed Funko Pops, which she will be signing live, and afterwards she sends it to us, and we will send it right back to you. So really cool way to get that signed Funko Pop if you're into that.
Heck yeah. Um, well, I guess it's my turn. My name is PJ McGaw. You can find me all over the internet at pj.mcgaw, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Come find me, confront me. Let's have fun. I have some fun TikTok ideas in the future. Hopefully, I can actually get the brain together to do it. When I'm not here Tuesdays with Mr. Michael Powell, you can see me and him and all of our friends, plus two new guests that I hope to see plenty more on our channel for this Wednesday. We are not going to be doing Edge of Legend for the next month because September is an awesome charity game that we have made called the Firebrands, the Fire of Life. And Mr. Michael Powell here plays a monkey goblin clown gunslinger. And if you remember, we have two new guests, Makai and Fee. Loved having them. You guys seem to have a great time with them. Come check it out. It's basically the same time as Edge of Legend, 8 to 11, but it's supporting the Cosplay IRL, which is the St. Jude's cancer charity for kids. Put the links up, go there, support. Anything helps. We're going to be doing this pirate game until the end of September, and then Halloween's right around the corner. Can't wait for that. So we're going to be returning to Edge of Legend proper in November. That being said, you can come find me Mondays at Tabletop Rules as I play Strength of Thousands with some of our friends and fellow Twitchers. I'll be playing Benji, the Shuni, Basenji, Magus, who's a good old boy who just wants to learn stage magic instead of blow stuff up magic. And I guess we're going to have more announcements as they progress. But coming again, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, CSP Awesome, and we love you. Go check out Purgatory Cafe on Thursday and say hello to Tobias and Sam and Ryan and Michael and all of our friends. And hopefully I'll see you there again soon. Have a good weekend. Until next time, see you here, same Nat time, same Nat channel, at the table.
Bye.
Bye. Go vote.
Yeah. Drop the ballot off.
Drop the ballot. Yeah.
If you're in California.
Throw it at their noggins if you want to.